Let's jump right into this explainer. I'm putting on my arborist and horticulture instructor hat today because we are going to completely demystify tree biology and pruning. If you've ever stood under a magnificent oak or looked at perfectly maintained park canopies and wondered, how do the pros do that? Well, you're in the exact right place. We're going to bridge the gap between heavy botanical science and practical, everyday tree care. Here's our roadmap for today. We're covering the living tree inventory, how trees actually grow, the paradox of pruning, heading back versus thinning, timing your pruning, and finally, right tree, right place. Let's get to it. Section 1, the living tree inventory. Now, trees aren't just background scenery. They are highly curated community assets. Take a look at this digital map from Merced College. It's a truly stunning example. What you're seeing is a living campus tree inventory. For about 15 years now, students and community members haven't just been strolling past these trees. They actually planted about half of them. They've been actively mapping, photographing, and identifying their local canopy, tracking everything from European beeches to coastal live oaks. And this kind of dedicated documentation literally turns a simple campus into a living, breathing teaching tool. Just check out this entry for a sour gum tree, or Nyssa sylvatica. By religiously logging planting dates, mulching practices, and maintenance history, these students are tracking the real, long-term biological impact of tree care. It's a continuous living lab. But, to properly maintain a database and a canopy like this, we first have to understand the underlying mechanics of the plants themselves. Which brings us to Section 2, how trees actually grow. Okay, everything starts with a foundational botanical concept called apical dominance. Simply put, this is what happens when the active growing tip of a shoot, the terminal bud, releases hormones that actively inhibit the growth of the lateral buds right below it. It is absolutely crucial to understand that strong apical dominance primarily affects the current season's shoot growth. It's the boss. It dictates whether a young, green shoot grows straight out like a stick or if it immediately starts branching out. Now, this concept completely flips our assumptions about tree shapes. Think of a cone-shaped tree, like a pine or a sweet gum. This is what we call an excrement form. You'd probably assume it has strong apical dominance because of that one massive central leader, right? But botanically, it actually has weak apical dominance. Those lateral buds grow out in the exact same season the shoot is formed. However, over time, the central leader manages to outpace them all, a process we call strong apical control. On the flip side, we have decurrent trees, like your classic round-headed oaks or maples. On their current seasonal shoots, they have strong apical dominance, meaning no lateral buds break out right away. But the very next year, those buds release and vigorously outgrow the original leader. That means the tree has weak apical control over time. Understanding this is like unlocking a puzzle. It explains exactly why some trees look like structural cones, while others look like giant spreading umbrellas. Section 3. The paradox of pruning. Back in 1975, the legendary arboriculture expert Richard W. Harris wrote this: "Pruning is an ancient practice, well understood, but the principles often are not practiced nor appreciated." And honestly, he hit the nail on the head. Almost anyone can grab a pair of shears and just hack away at a branch. But true pruning, the kind that guarantees the long-term structure and health of an urban canopy, well, that requires applied science. And that leads us to the great botanical mystery of tree care. Consider this for a second. How can cutting pieces off a tree make it grow faster, yet ultimately cause it to stay smaller? Sounds totally impossible, right? Let's unpack it. Pruning does two seemingly contradictory things at the exact same time. It invigorates and it dwarfs. When you prune, you're removing growing points. But the root system? It stays the exact same size. So suddenly, this massive root system is pumping the same amount of water and nutrients into way fewer shoots. It's literally like giving the tree a localized shot of nitrogen fertilizer. The remaining individual shoots are going to grow much more rapidly, and those leaves will be noticeably larger and greener. It heavily invigorates those specific branches. But at the exact same time, you've reduced the total leaf area of the tree. Fewer leaves means less photosynthesis, and that means less total food energy produced for the whole plant. So the overall total growth of the plant is stunted or dwarfed. By mastering this paradox, we can expertly direct energy exactly where we want it to go. Section 4, heading back versus nettle. There are two primary pruning cuts we need to talk about. First is heading back. This is when you cut a branch down to a random stub. Please avoid this. It forces out a dense cluster of vigorous, highly unnatural shoots with very weak attachments, completely ruining the tree's form. Contrast that with thinning out, which is absolutely the preferred, healthier method. Here, you remove a branch entirely at its point of origin. But to do this correctly and support long-term tree health and structure, you must use the professional three-cut method. Let's break it down. First, look closely at the branch attachment. Identify the branch bark ridge. That's the raised, rough line of bark where the branch meets the trunk. Then find the branch bark collar, that slightly swollen, thicker area right at the base of the branch. Protecting that collar is critical. Okay, here is the technique. Step 1, make a shallow undercut beneath the branch, a few inches out. This prevents the heavy bark from tearing down the trunk when the branch falls. Step 2, cut completely through the branch further out from your first cut to safely remove the bulk of the weight. Step 3, make your final precision cut just outside the branch bark collar, angling slightly away from the bark ridge. Never, ever cut flush into the collar. Preserving that swollen collar area is absolutely crucial because it contains the specialized cells the tree needs to naturally heal over the wound. Doing this right retains the tree's natural architecture and controls its size safely. When you're thinning, you also need to think about the structural mechanics of the whole trunk. Research on stress distribution gives us a fantastic rule of thumb. You should never have more than 1/2 of a tree's foliage in the upper 1/3 of the canopy. By keeping at least half the foliage in the lower 2/3 of the tree, you actively encourage a strong, beautifully tapered trunk. And a properly tapered trunk is vital. It supports long-term tree health by distributing wind stress evenly right down to the roots, which prevents the tree from catastrophically snapping during heavy storms. Section 5. Timing your pruning. Timing your cuts perfectly is all about aligning your specific goals with the plant's natural biological cycles. If your goal is to encourage rapid structural development, say you're training a young tree, you absolutely want to prune during the dormant season or early spring, right before rapid growth begins. This ensures the maximum number of leaves are active for the longest possible time on your newly directed branches. Conversely, if you want to aggressively control size and actually slow down plant growth, wait until mid to late summer. By cutting after the big spring flush, you significantly reduce the leaf area for the remainder of the season, effectively starving the tree of excess energy and dwarfing its growth. Oh, and if you're growing flowering trees, make sure you prune them immediately after they bloom in the spring. Otherwise, you might accidentally cut off all of next year's flower buds. Section 6. Right tree, right place. As an experienced arborist, I can tell you for sure that the absolute best way to manage pruning is to prevent the need for massive cuts in the first place. Today, we don't have to guess how big a tree is going to get. We have incredible modern digital databases like the Select Tree Guide. You can literally plug in your precise USDA hardiness zone, set a strict maximum canopy width so the tree doesn't grow into the side of your house, and even filter for utility-friendly trees that won't require brutal heading back by the power company later on. By perfectly matching the biological needs of a specific tree to your exact site, you dramatically reduce the stress on the plant and a whole lot of maintenance burden on yourself. And this really brings our narrative full circle, back to those environmental horticulture students at Merced College. Their meticulously mapped living campus didn't just happen by accident. It's the direct result of applying these exact fundamentals, choosing the right tree for the right microclimate, understanding whether it has an excurrent or decurrent growth habit, and utilizing strategic thinning cuts rather than harmful heading backs. It just goes to show that proper tree selection and care is a continuous, deeply rewarding community effort. Ultimately, pruning isn't just basic landscape maintenance. It's a profound biological intervention. Every single time we remove a branch, we permanently alter where that tree sends its water, its nutrients, and its energy for years to come. Knowing how deeply a single cut alters a tree's biological future, what proactive choices will you make today to improve the long-term health and structure of your local canopy? Will you map a neighborhood tree, expertly thin out a crowded branch, or perhaps plant a new, perfectly selected seedling? The tools, the biology, and the correct cutting techniques are now firmly in your hands. Thank you for joining me in this explainer. Get out there, look closely at your branches, and happy pruning.